I'm just going to get this out of the way. Storybook opening. I love a storybook opening where it's the book, it's poetry, it rhymes. Like, I just love it so much whenever there's that. But then they make the like right turn where he's like in and out house, like just
slams the book closed. Doesn't he like rip it and use it as toilet paper?
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Ryan, I watched this pure masterpiece of art.
Mm-hmm.
This really revolutionary piece of media.
You're right. Yeah.
I think we peaked. We may have peaked.
We really
Actually,
did.
we almost did. We almost peaked because I was curious. We were texting a little bit back and forth, and you asked me, are we going to talk about how Dragon is a baddie? And I'll just start off. Yeah, she a bad?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad we could get that out of the way.
Oh, I'm at least establishing that it's going to be talked about in broad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not only is that the case, but I did a little bit of research. This movie came out in 2001. Shrek 2 came out in 2004, and I am blanking on when the Shrek 3 came out. There's a particular dragon-based company that came out just a few years after these movies that came out. And I'm willing to bet that they took inspiration from Dragon. Do you want to take a guess on what company this is called?
Dragon-based company after Shrek.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
Well, that's too bad because there are dragons in this company. That's the hint. Where are my freaks in the chat? Welcome to Big Flying Lizard, a Dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson. I am joined by a very special guest. Ryan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Ryan. I'm from the Alluring podcast. I like talking about folklore and that kind of stuff. And, dragons are right there. So when Bryce told me that we could not only do dragons, but also, the baddest dragon around, he had me, and I was excited.
Hey, and I'm excited to have you on. We first, I think, started talking about it at that Ren Fair that was where we almost got blown away in tornadoes, it felt like. But for those of you that are not aware, I do not encourage you Googling what it's. Do not Google it. Ask a friend.
Okay, I was about to, so now I'm going to hold up.
What toys for?
Oh,
they sell
nice.
Novelty adult toys, if you might.
Well, then that checks out. That checks out.
Yeah, it's a lot of people love them. A lot of strong independent models that form on a certain particular websites. They love this brand, but this is neither here nor there. I am quite excited to talk about the movie that we are talking about today. Ryan, we are going to be discussing Shrek 2001, which, if you don't mind, I'd love to just give us our whole rundown of what it's going to be about.
Sure.
Alrighty. Oh. Shrek is a 2001 American animated fantasy comedy film loosely based on the 1990s children's picture book Shrek by William Steig. Directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, written by Ted Elliott, Terry Rosie, Joe Stillman, and Roger S.H. Schulman. It is the first installment in the Shrek film series. The film stars Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and John Lithgow. In the film, an embittered ogre named Shrek finds his home in the swamp overrun by fairy tale creatures banished by an obsessive ruler, Lord Farquaad. With the help of Donkey, Shrek makes a pact with Farquaad to rescue Princess Fiona in exchange for regaining control of his swamp. The film was theatrically released by DreamWorks Pictures in the United States on May 18th, 2001, and grossed over $492 million worldwide, becoming the fourth highest grossing film of 2001. It was widely praised by critics for its animation, voice performance, soundtrack, writing, and humor, which they noted catered to both adults and children. Shrek was named one of the top 10 films of 2001 by American Film Institute, and the first animated film to be listed, won numerous accolades, including the BAFTA Award for Best Adapted Screenplay and the inaugural Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. The film's success has helped establish DreamWorks Animation as a competitor to Pixar in the featured film computer animation. It also is regarded as one of the most influential animated films of the 2000s and is one of the greatest films ever made. The United States Library of Congress selected Shrek for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2020, becoming the first animated film in the 21st century to be preserved.
That's crazy. I hope in like 300 years they're like, what were humans doing in 2001? And they find the Library of Congress, and that's all that's left is Shrek.
I want it to be the only thing left in the library, like nothing else. Like there's a green door.
Yeah.
And nothing else is going. But Ryan, I want your initial thoughts on this film. What?
No, I love Shrek. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. My best friend watches it every single night before they go to bed, which I think is crazy, but shout out to them.
Are they okay?
I don't think so. No, they're not. If Shrek's your comfort movie, like I hope you're doing all right. Maybe go talk to someone. But no, I think this movie, which I'm sure we'll get to this, has the most like relatable call to action of any movie I've ever seen in my life. And it's just, I want these people out of my house. And who of us hasn't been there at least once, you know?
For sure. I mean, I really couldn't have put it better. But also like going back and watching this, because I don't know about you, but it's been years since I've seen Shrek.
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, I have not seen it in a long, long while, and there's so much that I feel like I missed out on.
Oh, for sure.
Initially watching this, for example, a lot of the humor, I was like, wow, like,
yeah,
my corrupted mind is over here. Like, there's like a sex joke like every 5 minutes here.
Yeah, I'm not sure 6-year-old me should have been watching it back in 2001, but here we are, you know.
They're just making it like all these movies nowadays. They're so weak.
Yeah. They didn't grow up in the Shrek generation.
That's why all these. I could go down a hole, but also on that there was just even Shrek's humor, because he was like saying a lot of things. Like again, we'll probably talk a bit more into it, but Shrek as a character is such an interesting and vulnerable character. Like he's very relatable in the sense of like, one, he wants to be left alone, but the reason he wants to be left alone is because he feels like when he's surrounded by people, he's being judged by them and they aren't thinking positive thoughts. And it's sort of like this vicious cycle, because I'm pretty sure it is at the point in the movie where he's like, well, you, Shrek, are judging people for judging them. Like thinking you're judging them when you're assuming that they're judging you. Like, and it's just one of
he's the most judgy guy there is.
Exactly. But so I mean, I feel like there's some beautiful messages in that movie. There's also just absolutely ridiculousness. Like it's
the again, I'm sure we'll get to it, but the fight scene like with the knights like early in the movie, I think to this day is one of my favorite like animated fight scenes of all time. Yeah, it's just so good, like turning into like a WWE match, and like they deserve that BAFTA. That's all I'm saying.
Concerning that, we'll probably dive a little bit. I'll just say it now. But when all the crossbowmen like aim their crossbows down at Shrek, I saw several trailers growing up when I was still young, like for PG-13 or R movies, where there'd be like bowmen on this roof, like aiming down at people in that sort of situation. And obviously it's just a tactical advantage. It's not like it's an original idea, but every time I'd see that, I'm like, They took that from Shrek.
Yeah, Shrek did it first.
Shrek did it first. No one else.
No one. It's an original. Lord Farquaad was the guy who came up with that military formation of like holding the high ground. May not have known that, but that's why it's in the Library of Congress. Sun Tzu, who.
He learned from great Lord Farquaad. There's some really interesting stuff just in the behind the scenes of this movie that I'd really love to dive into. One, I don't know if you know this or not, but Chris Farley was actually originally casted to be Shrek, which I want to see that movie so bad. Where Shrek.
I don't know. Mike Myers is like, I can't picture Shrek. I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong, but I cannot picture Shrek not with Mike Myers' voice. Like, it's such an iconic voice.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree. Like, I do like Mike Myers, but at the same time, like, I feel like Chris Farley is very much one of those Jim Carrey-esque comedian actors where
for sure
they obviously have their lines, but then they just do whatever they want. I would have loved to see like just the madman cook. Like
it'd have been a much more over the top, probably about 2 hours longer from just ad-libbing the entire movie. It may have been a whole different story by the end of it. Who knows?
Well, all three movies, the first three movies would have just been the one movie.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't talk about Shrek without talking about Smash Mouth All-Star. Like,
yeah.
Like that song, one, it still slaps. Two, literally whenever it comes on, I think Shrek. I don't think anything else.
No, it's the Shrek song. Sent Shrek. I mean, I was young at the time, but go-to karaoke song still. But yeah, I mean, granted, again, this came out when we were both very young, but I don't know if Smash Mouth was even somewhat relevant prior to this movie.
I definitely would have to like look that up and see because I'm not sure. I mean, I only got into music like after being roommates with Austin, and she's like, "Why are you only listening to Nickelback? Like, what's going on here?"
I need my divorced dad rock.
Divorced dad energy at 18. Well, also just fun fact about it, it earned $42.3 million in the opening weekend. Wow. So that's in 2001, that's like $20 billion nowadays.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
And it's still, what'd you say earlier? It was like the 5th highest grossing movie of that year?
Yeah. Like,
man.
There was, I think 2001 was a banger year for movies.
Apparently, yeah. If that was not even top 3, that's crazy.
I meant to do like actual, like I keep spouting this piece of information off, like assuming that it's true. And I really should just do the research to make sure that it is. But I know that DreamWorks was both doing Prince of Egypt and Shrek. And the rumor is online that everyone that fucked up on Prince of Egypt got sent to Shrek because it was just
really
miserable to be doing. Now, Prince of Egypt, this is no shock to any of the regular listeners here, is one of my favorite movies of all time. Beautiful soundtrack, animation's beautiful. So, I mean, I'm glad that they were cracking the whip over there. No pun, like, no, not trying to draw anything from the middle, but only expecting excellency.
Yeah. So I looked it up real quick just because I was curious, and I understand now why it's number 5, because there were some bangers in 2001.
Let's hear
Harry Potter, Monsters Inc., Rush Hour 2, Lord of the Rings, and The Mummy Returns. 2001, good year. Well, most of the year.
That just tells, again, they just don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, they don't do it, brother. Come on.
I want it just like how it used to be there. Well, so do you want, this is one that's actually breaking my mind a little bit for a fun fact. the DVD and VHS release broke records, selling over 7 million copies in the first 3 days.
Believe it. They had
Yeah.
I think it was maybe it was like Shrek 1.5. I could be wrong, but there was like a 3D DVD release of Shrek, and it came with like 3D glasses, and it wasn't the full Shrek movie, but I think it came with the Shrek, like the box set or something. It was like a bonus movie, and that might be why, because every single person I knew had Shrek 3D.
Well, was that where it also came out and there was the whole like CD where it's talking about their actual wedding and Farquaad like kidnaps like
Yeah, that's and the whole time it's a dragon. The whole time you're riding on the dragon, I think. So
yeah. Well, there's
it
like
was,
an undead dragon and then there's our girl dragon.
Man, I completely forgot about that until just now. That was a deep memory unlocked.
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, I think that's really what it like. All jokes aside, that this was just such a nostalgic feeling for me. But
Yeah.
there's been times where I've watched these nostalgic movies and it's like, oh, it's just not as good as I remembered it being. This is probably one of the few movies, maybe even like the only movie where I'm watching and I'm like, I think it's better than like
Oh yeah.
when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Like,
it holds up. 100% holds up.
It really does. But do you have anything else that you want to dive into before we get this chapter 1 kicked off?
Oh, man. No, I don't think so. I'm ready to get to the movie.
All righty. We're going to go ahead and dive into chapter 1. Chapter 1. Intrusion and the Quest. Shrek, an antisocial ogre, enjoys his solitary life in the swamp, fending off intruders and mobs. Lord Farquaad exiles fairy tale creatures from Dolok, and they end up in Shrek's swamp, disturbing his peace. Shrek confronts Farquaad, demanding the creatures be relocated, and reluctantly allows Donkey to guide him to Dolok. Farquaad learns from a magic mirror that he must marry Princess Fiona to become king. Farquaad organizes a tournament to find a champion to rescue Fiona from a dragon-guarded castle. Shrek and Donkey arrive in Dolok, defeat Farquaad's knights, and are sent on the quest to rescue Fiona in exchange for the swamp being cleared of fairy tale creatures. I'm just going to get this out of the way, and again, there's going to be everybody in the chat, everybody that's listening is going to roll their eyes. Storybook opening. I love a storybook opening where it's the book. Oh, it's poetry. It rhymes. Like, I just love it so much whenever there's that. But then they make the like right turn where he's like in and out house, like just
slams the book closed. Doesn't he like rip it and use it as toilet paper? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
and that's when we get the song right away.
Yeah.
Smash Mouth, straight out the gate.
I was thinking this, and I actually wrote it down in my notes. I really think this might be one of my favorite beginnings of a movie.
Oh,
like
for
the
sure.
Animation when the names are popping up, like it's so like it's one of those things where it's supposed to be disgusting, but it looks so good that I'm like, I don't even care that it's gross. Like it's not even like that gross.
Yeah. Since 2001, everyone's been trying to mimic the title sequence of Shrek, and they just can't do it, you know?
Oh.
You get drawn in right away. Yeah, it was toilet paper. Someone in chat said even when they use it as toilet paper. Yes, exactly.
That just enhances the experience so much more there.
Mm-hmm.
I keep going back and forth on this, and I just want to pick your brain, seeing if you have an answer to it. Didn't Farquaad like put the fairy tale creatures in Shrek's swamp?
Yeah, because after there's the scene where they're trying to like round them up, and that's where Donkey gets introduced.
Yeah,
and then he chooses to put them there. I think they think it's like an abandoned swamp, maybe. I don't try to remember if it says. I just watched it again today. It doesn't really specify why.
He was interrogating Gingy, like the gingerbread man. Like, where are they? I'm like, you just have
them. Yeah, you put them there. Yeah,
like,
yeah, they didn't escape there.
And then
besides Donkey.
And then he was like acting like, oh yeah, you do this for me and I'll clear them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, boys, we got him again.
We found him again. And, I mean, just while we're still on the intro scene, that intro scene made me want to take a mud bath every day because, like, looks disgusting, but growing up, I was like, that looks so refreshing, laying in like bubbling swamp water.
Well,
Shrek had it figured out
first, Shrek or the mud bats that are like in Europe, where
again. Yeah, not only did Shrek just create the high ground, he also created mud bats. Really world changing. And tagging. Mm-hmm. And some bomb YouTube memes, I will say.
Shrek is love. Shrek is love.
Yeah. Not to go too far off topic, but just speaking of bad, for Christmas, I got a book that was called like Get Out Me Swamp for my friend. And it was like a Shrek like smut book, and it was wild. I read it. It was only like 50 pages, but Shrek really, people just took it and ran with it. The fact that exists.
There's, again, most of my research apparently is coming from memes, but there's the meme that like popularized that's like, no, men do not, like, women are not into the dad bod. Magic Mike made $210 million. That proves that they're all about the hot bod. And then somebody at the top comment is like, Shrek made $492 million.
Shrek almost made that opening night. Like, let's calm down there. All right. Shrek did a number for us big boys, let me tell you, and I appreciate it.
I want to, because I've seen, and we'll talk about it later, but in Shrek 2, I've seen like the renditions of when they put like a beard on Shrek, and I'm like, I need a cosplay as that. Like, I'm not saying I look as good as he does, but like that's like one of the few like animated characters I'm like, I can actually remotely look like that though.
I feel like we should go to the Ren Fair, and I could be regular Shrek, and you could be handsome Shrek, and we could kill it. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I just want to go to a Ren Fair, so any excuse that
you already got the hair, like you're halfway to handsome Shrek already.
I think I have the personality and
we're there. Just gonna need some green paint. We're good to go.
Do you know why they decided to call it? I don't. I'm just asking. Like why Dolok? Like, why is that the name that they went with? Is there any significance?
I don't know. It's. I guarantee you, it's some sort of pun, and it just to this day goes over my head. But that, oh man, I made the mistake today. You know, remember the song like "Welcome to Dolok"? Such. I listened to that. First thing I did today when I woke up was watch Shrek before I started doing homework, and my little ADHD brain has just been singing "Welcome to Dolok" every minute, to be honest.
So I don't know if this is just the sign of the times or just what I necessarily been seeing lately, but Farquaad was giving off a little I don't know, a little Adolf energy. Like how the way, like even the way that they were talking about, like they were like talking about straight up like sending the fairy tale creatures to camps. Like that's
like quite literally that's the premise of the movie. Not a great guy.
No,
really bad guy.
And those little puppet guys, they're like the German, like classic German.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just sitting there.
He's about the right height too, you know? Like
well, and another thing, like I don't know. I did some research. I shouldn't say I didn't do any research. I did some research. Apparently, Dolok is supposed to be based off of Disneyland. Like so like when they're like walking the ropes to get in there.
Yeah, that part's so funny.
Well, like that was through. Again, I it sort of falls a little hollow because Disney is just so popular, but that was DreamWorks just like saying, yeah, no one's going to your amusement park.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's a perfect shot at Disney, like straight out the gate.
Yeah, and makes sense because my Mormon friends here, they don't like to be reminded of this, but there's a particular man by the name of Walt Disney that he had some interesting beliefs
Yeah.
when it came to
Not a great guy. Didn't like fairy tale creatures. From what I heard.
Is that our euphemism now? Right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll just say it again, though. I don't know if they just blew their entire budget in the introduction, but I feel like the animation throughout the film is good.
Yeah.
The intro, I feel like it was full balls to the walls.
Yeah, they spent all their money on the intro and the fight scene. That's it.
I mean, that's all you need. Like, we'll be getting into chapter 2 in a little bit, but the castle does look really good too. Like,
oh, for sure, yeah. And I mean, again, it was 2001, so you gotta like think of how like these days you could do that sort of animation in no time. Back then, like what they pulled off, like very impressive, especially since they were a relatively small company at the time. Like 2001 DreamWorks is not modern day DreamWorks.
Well, I almost wish 2001 DreamWorks was today's DreamWorks.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, that's valid.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a little intellectual. Would we have How to Train Your Dragon without Shrek?
Probably not. I feel like they probably wouldn't have survived as a company without Shrek.
No, I mean, like, Prince of Egypt was popular, but Shrek, I think, got the more money than Prince of Egypt.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Excuse me, because I talked to several of my non-Mormon, non-Christian friends about only about 50% of them actually saw Prince of Egypt growing up.
Yeah, it's a very niche movie. I don't think that was a box office hit per se.
I do think
maybe it was.
I think it was. Austin and I glaze it up on a daily basis. I'm going to go ahead and look that up. Is there another part of the intro or first chapter that you want to highlight real quick as I'm doing that?
I mean, I keep glazing up the fight scene, but like we talk about hyping up the song. Oh man, why can't I think of it?
I can just hear it in my head right now.
Bad Reputation. That's the other huge song. I mean, obviously, what's Joanne Jets, right? Very popular prior to Shrek, but I don't think little me would have known Bad Reputation before that song, and that became, that was on the iPod Shuffle. I'll tell you what, and it was shuffled a lot.
It be shuffling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nana Vagar's right there telling us that it's bad.
Thank you. Yeah. I got to it. I knew it. It was in my head. I was like, man.
So it's saying here that the movie Prince of Egypt's box office was $218 million, which
wow,
still not bad.
No,
but not Shrek numbers. But it also did come out in 1998. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, with inflation a little bit. Again, that's more Magic Mike numbers, not quite Shrek numbers. But
well, I mean, like Joseph definitely had more of that cut look rather than the dad pod look.
Exactly. Yeah. Point proven twice this episode.
I would have loved to see the remastered version where Ramesses had like the dad bod, where be accurate, because we all know that Pharaoh was not sitting there.
Yeah, Pharaoh wasn't buff.
He was hardly ever outside. He was hardly. Oh well, if there's anything else, is there anything else you want to cover before we dive into chapter 2?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Actually, no, there is. So sorry. There is several moments that are like sprinkled throughout this first chapter where I'm not trying to turn this into Shrek is actually a self-help movie if you really look at but like Shrek is also, I feel like Shrek is trying to give a call for help throughout this movie. Like, especially even when he was talking to the mob, he was just like, oh, ogres, they're so much worse than giants. And like, just start describing exactly what they're doing. And like, he's giving them every chance to like get away and escape. And like, or even like somebody to call him out on it, because like he doesn't do anything horrific. Like he kicks
Nah.
people's asses, but like
Yeah, but they're in his house.
yeah, well, and in the epic WWE scene, like he's over there like
Yeah,
arm people and
exactly. Yeah, Shreks have layered emotions like onions. You know, like, there's more to them the more you look into it.
or like cakes.
Or
Everybody-
like cakes. Yeah, everyone likes cakes.
We're gonna probably say this a ton. Eddie Murphy is just such a gem in this. Like he's a gem in general, but he's just a gem in this movie.
Yeah, that's another one. Like without Eddie Murphy as well as Mike Myers, I don't think this movie would have done as well as it did. I can't think of anyone who would have done a better job as Donkey.
Yeah, it's not giving an exact number or like statistic, but it's my notes are saying that Eddie Murphy's performance as Donkey is widely praised as one of the best comedic characters in a movie. So
Yeah, like hands down.
yeah, I mean
He could fly. Like
he can talk,
he could talk. He could fly. Likes cakes
likes cakes,
and caked up dragons. You know, it's
well, he was fighting back. He wasn't about it. It wasn't okay. I'm gonna save this for next chapter because I have some thoughts.
yeah.
Here.
Well, we hold it in there. I think I know where you're going, but
Compartment. All right. Chapter 2, The Rescue and the Journey. Shrek and Donkey travel to Fiona's castle where they face the dragon. Shrek rescues Fiona, who initially is disappointed by his lack of romanticism. The trio escapes the castle after Donkey is rescued from the dragon, who falls in love with him. Fiona refuses to go to Dulac unless Farquaad rescues her himself, but Shrek carries her against her will. During the journey, Shrek opens up to Donkey about his antisocial nature and his fear of judgment due to his appearance. Fiona overhears Shrek's vulnerability and becomes kinder towards him. Fiona demonstrates strength by defeating Robin Hood and his merry men and impression. Shrek and Fiona develop feelings for each other as they travel towards Dulac. This section just had so many great moments that I just forgot how great they were. Like everything with the castle is great.
mm-hmm.
The fight with Robin Hood, low-key amazing.
That's another song that was stuck in my head all day. And Oh Merry Man.
And I do love that they make him French, even though like Robin
for no reason.
Yeah, like he was definitely not French. Like if Robin Hood was the real person, I think they just want. I love our French listeners, all 7 of you. But
you got 7 French listeners? That's crazy.
YouTube analytics, that's what they tell me.
Wow.
But I mean, I guess it's fair to say about any accent, but I feel like French accents in particular, when they're annoying, they're annoying. Like
yeah, language of love until it's too much, you know, then
yeah. And any of you, and by the way, any of you French listeners that are giving me a hard time about that, you guys are assholes towards Americans.
Yeah.
So on a daily basis,
you now have one French listener. Your analytics are going to shift a little bit after this.
Hey, scoreboard, friends.
Scoreboard. Oh my
God. Nana Vagar says in the chat, blue flowers, red thorns, blue flowers, red thorns. This would be so much easier if I wasn't colorblind.
Between that, the merry men, the weird dragon scenes, the fight, the onions, the cakes, this really is like definitely has the most like memorable parts of the movie. Like when I think about it, first and third part, we're kind of there. The middle,
Well, something that I also really appreciated is, and really didn't, I think, see until I grew up and became a cynical person who wants to be left alone, is how caring Shrek actually is. Like he tries to pretend he doesn't care, but like when they're crossing over the bridge, he's with Donkey and Donkey is like, oh, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. He's like, we're halfway there. Like,
Yeah.
What difference is going the rest of the halfway gonna make, man? Like, you got this. Come on. And like, yeah, he's an asshole and like swings the bridge around a little bit, but
Yeah.
I do that on a daily basis, man.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean the whole movie is based off Shrek not being that terrible, because I mean if he wanted to he could have just kicked all those fairy tale creatures out. He's an ogre, but instead he's trying to do it like get them another place instead of just out in the wild. So
well, I actually made note of how he gave this speech, and if you listen to the speech, like, yes, his tone is like, your stay here is done. I'm going to go talk to Farquaad and make sure that you go back to where you came from. Everyone's like, yes.
Yeah, like, oh, hell yeah. Like, that's what we want. Yeah.
I forgot to read, rewinding, going back to chapter 1. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
I loved it when the magic mirror was like giving the whole like, who do we have behind door number 1?
Yeah.
Cinderella.
Number 3, me lord.
Well, I was watching with subtitles and just listening to what he was actually saying, and like when he was talking about Cinderella, she's like, I wrote it down here. Mentally abused, shut in from a kingdom far, far away. She likes sushi and hot tubbing anytime. She cleans for her sisters and doesn't say much. And it's just, and then like, I didn't write it down because I was just cracking up too hard for Sleeping Beauty, but it's just like, she lives with 7 men, but she's not easy.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, the minute that your lips touch her cold dead lips,
cold dead lips,
it's gonna feel like, and I'm just like, they're just dying because like now that you think, because I always was like, why did it pick Fiona? Like they all like,
yeah.
But it's like, no, he actually was saying normal things, like the most unnormal thing about Fiona.
Yeah, we have 7 dwarves. We have someone who rides in onions. And then we have a girl who's just trapped in a tower, A tower doesn't sound that bad comparatively.
Especially when you don't have to be the one to rescue her.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I was dying. That was a portion that I was just cracking up the entire time, and I really didn't think it was that funny when I was younger, but now like
yeah, that's another one of those ones where you definitely miss it. When you're younger, you think like, oh, it's just like a game show, like you don't hear all the little like things like you're saying. I need to go watch it one more time because I didn't hear half of that either.
My favorite line still, like, and again, like the mentally abused shut in from a kingdom far away. It's such a banger line. Like, what else was going on here? The castle looked amazing, just visually. I know we said that earlier, but it just dark. It was scary. It was ominous, and like
big ass lava pit.
And there was also a smog gold room that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was thinking throughout it, like the one thing I do like about Shrek is there's the main story. And everything else is sort of like, oh, it happened. It doesn't matter. You don't need the details. Like, where did this castle come from? Who was here before?
Yeah. It's like the whoever made the castle, like designed it, just looked up like every like dragon castle stereotype and was like, we got to put them all. Every single one. Rickety bridge, giant lava pit, fire room, really tall towers for some reason, for no reason really. And they hit every single one of them.
I do have a thought on that, but I'm going to save it for when we talk about Shrek 2, because I think there's actually a lot that can I'm trying so hard to not talk about Shrek 2 because
it's also a banger.
So good. But we're talking about Shrek, and I have to say, like, I'm sure that it was a lot more obvious to me this time around watching Fiona, because at first she was like, my prince, you doth rescue me, a fair maiden. And then like, as she realizes like, oh, he's not a conventional guy, she like just starts talking normal and like just and like it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. She's like, oh, this is just some guy who climbed this tower for me, not some creepy lord.
Yeah, it was like, have my children and take my name.
No,
And
that's Farquaad.
I also do love the short jokes that they were making. Like, throughout
Oh
the
yeah,
like the first time when Donkey and Shrek are actually like bouncing off, like I want to imagine that Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers were just told like, hey, just have some banter going back.
Just
Like,
make short jokes. Yes, I'm trying to think when it's like, he really will like size you up or something like that. I mean, I should have written these down.
well, I mean, it wasn't really at this time, but when they first see the castle of Duloc, uh, Donkey comes up and he's like, yeah, it's something. But Shrek thinks that he's overcompensating for, and Shrek
Yeah, don't you think you might be compensating for something? Like, yeah, when they're looking at how tall his tower is, yeah.
Oh my god. Oh yeah. Where would we be without Nana Vagar here in the chat? They're like, there are those who think little of him. That was
That's what it is. Yeah, and like Farquaad are in short supply. Yeah, thank you, Nana. That's like, and she's sitting there like, oh, you guys are so mean. Like, no, you
like,
haven't met this guy. Yeah, quite literally.
I also did genuinely enjoy like their little like love monologue that they have where they're just sort of running through the field and she's making him cotton candy with the flies. They get the snake and the frog and make it into balloons. And
yeah,
like it's one of those things that it's just so high mind fantasy that it's like, what is going on? But I love everything that's going on.
Yeah, I wanted a snake balloon so bad.
Mm-hmm. I did spend a lot of time as a child like, what happened to them?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Like, they just let them go. Like, they're just out there floating to somewhere. I wonder if they like show up in any of the other movies, like in the background.
That would be some like I would love it if the animators just have them floating. Like if you
just
look
like in the back, yeah.
Oh, is there anything else that you want to go over in this chapter, real quick?
No, this chapter is very dragon heavy, so I know we'll get back to that after, because I got a lot to say about the dragon.
Oh, how could we forget that Fiona out singing a bird to make it explode? Like,
yeah,
classic. All right. Chapter 3, Secrets Revealed and True Love. Fiona takes shelter in a windmill where Donkey discovers her curse. She transforms into an ogre at night. Fiona explains that the only true love's kiss can break the curse and make her true love's form. Shrek overhears Fiona referring to herself as an ugly beast and mistakenly believes she is insulting him. Hurt and angry, Shrek leaves and brings Farquaad to Fiona, who agrees to marry him before sunset. Shrek returns to his swamp but realizes he is miserable without Fiona. Donkey confronts Shrek, urging him to stop jumping to conclusions and reconcile with Fiona. Donkey summons the dragon. They fly to Duloc to stop the wedding. Shrek interrupts the ceremony, confessing his love for Fiona and exposes Farquaad's selfish motives. Fiona transforms into an ogre at sunset, revealing her curse to everyone. Farquaad orders Shrek's execution and Fiona's imprisonment, but Dragon saves them by devouring Farquaad. Shrek and Fiona share true love's kiss, breaking the curse, though Fiona remains an ogre. The two marry in the swamp, surrounded by fairy tale creatures, and leave for their honeymoon.
The part where they are like about to break into the wedding is one of my favorite parts in the movie, when he's about to go in and Donkey's like, no, wait, you have to wait till he says, does anybody object to the marriage? And then he's like, oh, he already said it. Go, go, go.
Oh, I mean, there really is just so much. Like, Donkey throughout this movie is coming across as such a, like, no pun intended, a jackass. Like just, but like
Yeah.
once they go to the swamp and he like, before I was like, why does Donkey have any right to like claim any of Shrek's swamp? That doesn't make sense. But then
Yeah.
in this watch through, Donkey's like, no, I did this with you 50-50, brother. Like,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
your half, it's my half. Like, I did
Mhm.
this too. You didn't just. So
Yeah.
like, now that he says that, that makes sense to me. Like,
Yeah. He tamed a whole ass dragon.
yeah, what is he gonna do to say about that? Like, you can't
Yeah.
just argue.
That's the one thing that could take Shrek in this universe.
Oh, and it was really interesting just to see how Fiona and Shrek are sort of going through the very similar experiences throughout this, because at first when you're seeing Fiona in chapter 2, when I'll get to that anime garbage.
I just saw that too.
You want to hold her, Lisa? Then you got to try a little tenderness. Love it. So
Chicks love that romantic crap.
oh, I love it. But at first we just see Fiona as like this very eager to get married, very eager to like have her fairy tale. But we come to find out it's not because she's like, I need to get married. She's not being a Mormon girl over here. It's more she's like, I want this curse broken. I do not want to continuously turn into an ogre at night.
Yeah.
But
And like, so this, that whole part with her when Shrek overhears her and acts, then thinks that she's talking about him, like going back to like the first chapter where you're like, he's actually just a sensitive guy.
yeah.
And it kind of proves it there because he's like, oh, you think I'm just a nasty little ogre.
No, I totally agree, where it is just showing that level of sensitivity that he has. And though he may be hard on the outside, he's soft on the inside.
Yeah. Just like an onion or a cake.
Especially a cake.
Yeah. I think Donkey nailed it.
I feel like this is actually a good moment to be like, Donkey is not a good partner. And I'm not even talking like the whole like size different thing. Like, he was just there manipulating Dragon. Like,
What?
yeah. He's like, he even said to Fiona, like when they're walking back, he's like, so I need your advice. What if there's this girl that likes me and I'm really not about her, but if I tell her no, she's gonna fry me and like turn me to a pile.
Valid. We've all been there, right, boys?
We've all been there. But like, it's not until it's convenient for Donkey,
That's fair.
and so he's
Then he's like, I could use this as a weapon.
not only a weapon, he's using her for frequent flyer miles over here.
You're right. All right. Well, when you put it that way, you know, maybe Donkey's not great.
The rendition of Hallelujah is just heartbreaking, cutting between both Fiona and Shrek sobbing at opposite ends of the table. I was wanting to say that as well. I love the song Hallelujah. Like, it's just a beautiful song in general.
Yeah.
I feel like us 90s babies over here are just going to love that song in general, but
Yeah. They're really every single song in this entire movie is just a banger. Like, the more we talk about the songs, I'm like, man, and not just like, oh, it was good in that movie banger, just like songs that straight up like just good music.
So I like to listen to fantasy music whenever I edit the podcast.
Mhm.
Obviously, I can't listen to my audiobooks because it's just too distracting.
Yeah.
But the fairy tale song in Shrek is like it's Fiona's like theme song where she was like singing off. Or like, I love that song as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's very fantasy-esque, but it's also just very light and whimsical and just a good time in general.
Do you listen to the version like with the bird?
Not quite.
You're just sitting there focused and it's like, wow.
Just explodes. Oh no, it's there really isn't a weak part in this movie. Like, because we were what movie what were we talking about? Well, so actually we just finished talking about Avatar The Last Airbender a couple
Nice.
weeks ago. And the animation style in Avatar The Last Airbender is beautiful as well. But something that I noticed about Avatar The Last Airbender is the background art. Like, it's not bad, but that's probably where they're like, hey, we can cut the budget there. Like, that is. And I don't get that feeling with Shrek. And again, I know TV show, movies, but I feel like there's a lot of animated films where they're like, hey, people are not looking in the background. We don't need to be focusing on that. And especially back then, you had to put that work into it.
Especially in like a 3D animation versus a 2D animation. Like, if you skimp on the background, I feel like it takes the characters out so much because you're like more immersed in it. Whereas like with a 2D animation, like your immersion is already limited by it being 2D. So having that less like detailed background doesn't destroy your immersion too much, but you definitely can't get away with that in 3D.
No, I mean, I'm a big Berserk fan. Everybody again on the podcast knows that. But the TV show that I love the 1998? The older animation. I love that one. And then the movies they released, I really love. But the TV show that they did like in 2016, it's the 3D animation. And I want to burn it with fire. I want I want to set the studio that made it on fire in a video game.
In Minecraft.
In Minecraft, because I really think because of that show, we're not going to get like an official Berserk show ever again because people hated it so much. But again, that's neither here nor there.
That was the like Netflix rendition, right? I haven't seen that.
It wasn't a Netflix rendition. It's just people saw how successful the movies were because they did 3 movies where it was like how the Guts joined the Band of the Hawk. The second one was the siege of that one city that was the guy was obsessed with, Griffith, and then the third one was the eclipse. So
they just ruined it with the shows.
Tragic.
With the shows. Shrek would never.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life. Never do that. So Ryan, before we like go into our dragon grade, there were like several just fascinating things that I really wanted to dive into really quickly. First of all, did you ever read the book Shrek?
No, like to be honest, I didn't know it was
loosely based off of.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of it.
So it was a book, and
the only Shrek book I've read is the one I talked about earlier, and that I don't think that was based off of any sort of.
That's the one. That's what it's based.
That's the one. Oh, that's crazy. They took a lot of creative liberties. Let me tell you.
No, so it was a children's book, and Fiona actually is like an ogre just in general. Like, it's a princess that he has to go and rescue, but it turns out that she just is an ogre, but she's like a purple ogre or something like that. And they end up like, it's definitely a weird thing that's going on.
Yeah.
I understand
why. So there's
why.
no Lord Farquaad or
no donkey.
No.
Yeah, so what's the point?
Yeah, you lost me. I'll stick with my other book. Donkey's in my book. Unfortunately.
I want to I you know,
no,
I
you don't. You don't. We can move
on. I did also just really appreciate the level of dark humor that was in this movie that was like blatant. I'm a big sucker for dark humor. Like for one, Gingy being milk board. Like over there, they just keep dunking him in.
Not the gumdrop buttons.
And like that whole sequence just like, do you know the Buffett man? Muffin Man on Drury Lane.
Muffin Man.
She's married to the Muffin Man.
With this and Truly Lane? Yeah, that's that. Eat me up.
Dr. Gumdrop.
So good.
But then I
Very
also
messed up.
very, very messed up. But like one thing that I also thought was like, again, I have a sick, dark, twisted sense of humor. But I like when we see Papa Bear and Baby Bear at Shrek's swamp, Mama Bear's missing.
Yeah.
And you see Mama Bear in Farquaad's room, like as a rug.
As a rug, yeah.
And that's also the Farquaad boner scene. Like,
Yeah, it is.
Like, I cannot, like, because the internet has ruined me, I cannot unsee
No.
Farquaad getting bonered.
Because it was 100% intentional. Like that was not an accidental movement of the sheets watching his magic mirror.
Like, he's there, he's watching his future wife. Future wife. He's like, he even lifts a bit, like, lifts them. No, like, they're not being slick there. Is there any final thoughts on the film that you want to go ahead and do before we do our dragon grade?
Not just another banger song at the very end when they're like celebrating the wedding, that like I Believe song.
Yeah, I'm a believer.
I'm a believer. And then I think in like the post-credit scene, like Farquaad's like singing Staying Alive in the dragon's belly. So such a good soundtrack. The more I think about it, just every song.
Well, I think they really leaned into it because, and again, we'll talk more about this when we talk about Shrek 2, but in Shrek 2, they had the game in the bonus features. That was the American Idol.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to follow the Disney like trope of like, oh, we're going to make all of our own songs and they're all going to be very like over the top thematic. Like they're like, no, we're just going to get this band called Smash Mouth and they're going to just drop a banger hit.
I'm actually so glad you said that because otherwise I was going to completely forget about this because Donkey almost had a Disney-esque like singing moment.
Because you got to have bread. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that there was like music building up in the background. Like I do not remember that as a kid at all. Like, and I was like, wait, was there always music and it's building up? And then Shrek grabs Donkey by the ears and he's like, it's no wonder you don't have friends.
Yeah, stop singing. And thank goodness he did. We didn't need a donkey ballad.
We got the donkey ballad at the end, and I'm a believer.
Yeah, exactly. That was the only time. We only needed one donkey ballad.
We didn't need a Disney donkey ballad. I think that's what we're coming down to. All righty. So, any other last thoughts before we dive in and grade?
I don't think so.
All righty. Well, we are down to the whole reason we have the show, grading the dragon, you might say. Each week, we grade a dragon on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible, with 5 being okay. We have 5 categories, those categories being design, special effects, character, film, and X factor. Design, just the design in general, the special effects of the dragon, and overall the film. The character, just how we feel like the character made a difference in the show and just the amount of personality we saw. The film, the overall film score, and the X factor, the uniqueness or just give or take points where we think it sees fit. That being said, Ryan, on a scale of 0 to 10, what did you give Dragon for design?
For design, 6.9. The
0.9. All right. Walk me through this 6.9.
So, as we discussed, Dragon is a baddie. However, the proportions are a little off. I felt like the wings were really tiny. Everything else was real thick. And it didn't like imply there was magic involved, so I don't think it would be flying, to be honest.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally justified. I might be a little more generous with this baddie because I do love my big, thick dragons. I love them thick. That is a consistent thing said on
Yeah,
the podcast.
that helped a lot. I will say, like, raise the score.
I'm glad to hear it because I gave Dragon an 8, which
Valid.
I feel like she earned it. She's been hitting leg day. She's been hitting and those wings. You're like, you do those wings. You can sleep arm day, Dragon. You don't need to work. You don't need
That's fair
them.
enough. Yeah, she are not needing those big wings.
Special effects. What did you give the special effects specifically for Dragon? But it can also bleed into the film in general.
I think your score that you just gave an 8. I think that's pretty solid. Man, it's so hard because like I'm trying to think. If you would have asked me in 2001, I'd have said that's a 10 out of 10 animation because it looks so good. And I'm gonna say 9 because I think it still does hold up really well today.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said in the intro, it was like, oh, crazy animations. Then it kind of like tapered off to more like, okay, we have to stick with the budget. But I mean, it's just such a good movie, especially for its time.
Oh, for sure.
Animations.
No, I'm in that same vein that you are right now, where it's like, yes, Dragon looks great. Dragon looks amazing. The castle that Dragon is looks great. But that opening sequence, there was so much vibrant color, just the way things were moving. And I can't even believe I forgot to mention this. Shrek's meal looks delicious. It's supposed to be like
when
a
it lifts the log. Yeah.
It looks so good when it's there on the table. And I'm just like, I would eat that. But so I mean, I gave it an 8 again on this score, just because yes, it's great, but I think there is definitely room for improvement just considering how we saw it. I'm almost like, hey, yeah, you need to make an entrance, but don't blow your entire load in the beginning and then have to conserve for the rest.
Yeah, we have the budget for 2 fight scenes and an intro. Everything else, we'll wing it. We'll figure it out.
You're being caged to your desk until you get it done. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then they hit their budget, and then they came in and said, we got to make that dragon thicker. And they're like, sir, we're going to have to cut some costs in other places. And he said, I don't care. And shout out to whoever made that creative direction.
They're the real heroes here. Anna Vagar. You mean she doesn't have the flared base for safety purposes? Oh, it's saving me.
That's the other dragon. That's the other dragon company.
Okay.
She's not a bad dragon.
Oh, is she a nasty one?
Yeah. She a bad dragon, but she's not a bad dragon,
Alrighty. So, Ryan, I'm actually really curious with this score. What are you giving the character of Dragon on a scale of 0 to 10?
Man, this is again a hard one because in this movie, she doesn't do much besides seduce Donkey and then fly them and then eat Lord Farquaad. Granted, I guess in all the movies, but I mean, eating Lord Farquaad's pretty pivotal to the entire plot. So I'd say, I think I'm gonna go with 9 again because
9.
The scene when she's blowing the smoke hearts to Dragon and it's iconic. And just knowing what she becomes to Donkey, I feel like. So I might be given a little extra credit for future movies, but I can't get past that.
Hey, I think I'm not going to fault you for that. For me, I think it's very interesting because we've seen some media on the podcast of dragons that are almost like beasts. And I've given them so much credit for it's almost a meme at this point. I gave Caraxes in the House of the Dragon. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10 for personality, for character. They're like, well, if you see how it's tied to Damon, and I'm like,
yeah.
But in reality, I probably should have given it a 5.
Yeah.
Dragon does have some personality.
Yeah, some actual personality.
Yeah, like she was like a mindless beast when she was attacking Donkey, and then Donkey started to smooth talk her, and then that's when her heart it melted, and we saw that
grew 5 sizes that day.
It's just a girl who wants some love. It's just a girl who wants some love, and I've been slowly coming over. Like, I was never disagreeing with Austin, but I think the more and more films that I see, I agree with him, where it does make a difference if a dragon can talk or not. Like, I think
for sure
makes a huge difference. So on that note, I keep floating by, but I'm gonna be splitting the difference. I'm gonna be saying 6.5, which I mean, somewhere between good.
She doesn't talk, but she talks with her eyes.
Oh,
so
you be talking. That's what that 0.5 is. Nasty things she's saying with her eyes.
Say that smoke ring said a lot.
Alrighty. So I am quite curious on this one for you, Ryan. What do you give the movie Shrek, the 2001 movie of Shrek, on 0 to 10?
Man, I'm trying, I don't want to give it a 10 because it feels like a cop-out, but I'm genuinely trying to think of a movie that is more iconic than Shrek. And I don't think I could think of a more iconic movie. So I think I'm going to go with 10. It's held up for 24 years now, so I think it's deserved it.
If you would have asked me today if I would give Shrek, the 2001 Shrek, a 10 out of 10, meaning that it's incredible, I would have looked at you as you're crazy. But after watching it, I think it is a 10. The animation's amazing. The voice acting's amazing. Like, the humor's hilarious. It is appropriate for, the humor is dirty enough and dark enough to be funny to adults, but it's high-minded enough that it's going over the kids' heads. So it is a I don't want to say it's a family friendly, but you can watch the whole thing.
It's a young, once you have elementary school age kids, type movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many movies that have lasted as long as Shrek, like I said, 24 years, are movies with cult followings, I feel like Shrek doesn't even have a cult following. It just still has such a broad appeal. There is no small following. Everybody knows Shrek.
Well, it's upgraded from a cult to a religion. It's
exactly. Literally, Shrek is love.
It's not a cult following. It is a religious following.
Yeah.
People have.
And I'm pretty sure they're coming out with a new Shrek soon. I think I saw a trailer for it. So I mean, and people are hyped.
I meant to do some research, but they were going to release it a little bit, but then they delayed it instead. I think it's because of the Puss in Boots movie that came out. They decided.
Oh, okay.
Which I still haven't seen that, but I hear that that's incredible. The new
if you want to talk about animation, that one's really good. That one's beautiful. Story-wise, not nowhere in the ballpark of Shrek, but animation-wise, gorgeous movie. They had a budget with this one.
And that's where also going back to the special effects, where, again, I know that was 2 subjects ago, but have you seen the movie Raya and the Last Dragon? It's a Disney movie that came out during COVID.
I don't think so. Let me look real quick.
It wasn't that great. It essentially Disney's version of Avatar: The Last Airbender. You can see how they ripped off Disney.
I've seen the trailer for that one. I have not seen that one.
Visually, one of the most incredible movies that I've seen. That's it's truly just a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
But it's just, the story is just so meh.
Yeah.
And, I really believe that to make one of these movies, it's my philosophy with dragon movies, but slowly I think becoming my philosophy with movies in general, is there's 3 areas that I'm judging, and if 2 of them are good, I'll like the movie. The writing needs to be good, the animation needs to be good, or the acting needs to be good. If
Fair.
2 out of 3 are good, because if there's an amazing story and the acting's amazing, I don't care about the animation.
Yeah.
If the animation's there and the story's amazing and the actors and actresses are lacking, I can enjoy it. But when you get to where it's just one of those, like you need to have it where all
Yeah,
three,
for sure.
like, where two of those are being.
Yeah, and Shrek's got all three.
And that's what I was going to say. Shrek is all three, and I think it very much deserves that 10. But we are now down to our last factor, which is the X factor. Again, the X factor just going towards whatever you think makes this dragon unique versus other dragons you've seen in media. You can give it points where you think it gives credit. You can take away points where you think it needs to be taken away. It's really just do your own adventure with this score. What are you feeling?
Is this still an out of 10?
Yeah, it's 0 out of 10.
Okay, man. So I gave her a 6.9 earlier just because the wings and like kind of lack of dragon type activities. But X Factor, as we've discussed, absolute baddie. Being able to communicate like non-verbally, which I think was really cool in the animations, and like even as a kid being able to be like, yeah, like she was flirting with them. And then just being a ride or die for Donkey, like I'm gonna give the X Factor, I'm gonna do 9 for that, because
9, solid.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to bleed into my reasoning a little bit there for what I grade. Those of you who don't know, I feel horrible for not saying this. How Ryan and I actually initially met is we played Dungeons and Dragons together down in St. George, and I was his son essentially, as adopted.
Basically.
Until we
my boy.
But one trope that's often comes up, especially online, that you see with D&D, is that the bard is trying to seduce monsters. Like it's like goal to seduce, and this is the first time I think you ever see that actually happen.
Yeah.
Donkey, you could make the argument, is the original bard where he's rolling to seduce the monster, and it works. And it's one of those things where, like, as a DM, like, I might roll my eyes, but if my players are like, Donkey did it, did it.
He rolled a nat 20 when he went and started blinking at her.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's 100%. If Donkey would have gotten his musical earlier in the movie, he would have been a bard, but Shrek shut him down.
He was humming. That in
he was.
The movie.
Yeah.
So I think
Donkey's a bard.
20 bards.
Wow. Enough to seduce a dragon. Not just seduce a dragon, but like seduce a dragon to the point that she's like, yeah, I'll fly you to a kingdom and eat the guy for you.
Yeah. So that being said, like, her design, I think, is very atypical. There's nothing that's really unique other than like they Disneyfy her a little bit.
Yeah, they're trying to make her non-threatening so it could still be like a kid's movie. They weren't trying to terrify children.
Yeah. So, but all that being said, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 because, like, even in Dungeons and Dragons movies that have come out, you don't see the bard trying to seduce. So I gave it that, which the final score for Dragon in Shrek, the 2001 animated film, and final Dragon score comes down to 8.44, which is in between great and superb.
That sounds about right.
I think that's very appropriate.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And that is Shrek 1. Thank you, everyone who stayed with us throughout this. We will be back to discuss Shrek 2 next time. Ryan, do you want to plug anything before we go for tonight?
Yeah, my podcast is Alluring. Kimmy was on an episode, I don't know how many episodes ago. That's my co-host. If you like folklore and that kind of stuff, come check us out. We are not experts, and it's mostly me trying to tell Kimmy she needs to calm down because she's attracted to every cryptid that's ever existed.
I could relate because she came on and talked about Spirited Away with us. So,
oh man, yeah.
You can only imagine how she was there.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'd love to shout out. You guys are going to be hosting in April an actual artist event in Salt Lake. So those of you that are in the Salt Lake area, I'll be sharing more details on our socials, but just keep an eye out for that. I'm planning on being there. I might be just live streaming from my phone a little bit there, like doing some fun stuff.
That's going to be a really good time. If you're anywhere near Salt Lake, you should definitely stop by. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, share, go give a Loring Network a follow and like, and we'll be back to talk about Shrek 2 next Monday. Good night, y'all.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.